The border is not the only hot topic issue in Washington. Lawmakers are working to fix the opioid epidemic. They gathered today to explain how the two issues are related, as Dani Coble reports from our Washington bureau.
As a doctor, Congressman Roger Marshall knows something about prevention, and when it comes to preventing opioid abuse, he says that prevention starts at the border.
Focus is trying to figure out what can we do to prevent this from happening in the first place. So, number one is I'm excited that we're going to appropriate $25 billion to build a better security wall to help prevent a lot of these drugs from coming in.
Border security was a common theme this morning at a gathering of about a dozen Republican House members who talked about the importance of fighting the opioid epidemic. They had plenty to talk about. Last week, the House voted on roughly 39 bills aimed at the epidemic, with more coming to the floor today. One of those bills is the Stop the Importation and Trafficking of Synthetic Analogies Act, which was passed in the House on Friday.
And then another piece of it is also the synthetic drugs, the stopping the flow of fentanyl into the country. And one of our bills last week, I believe it was, dealt with the Postal Service and some things we needed to tweak around the law to have some better tools and resources for law enforcement to stop that.
Many of the measures deal with fentanyl, a synthetic drug that mimics the effects of other opioids, but is often far more dangerous. Inhaling even a little can pose a deadly risk for law enforcement officers, which is why one bill would fund technology to safely screen for the drug. Fentanyl can be produced here, but is often smuggled through the border, another reason lawmakers here keep returning to the issue of border security.
Whenever we can use technology I think that's what we'll be using to intercept it at the borders as well as through the mail.
The Stop the Importation and Trafficking of Synthetic Analogies Act was passed Friday. The act would penalize drug traffickers instead of users and would streamline the process to determine if a synthetic drug is considered illegal. That bill had 75 co-sponsors, including two Arizona Congresswomen, Martha McSally and Kyrsten Sinema. In Washington, Dani Coble, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is dedicated to covering the opioid crisis in Arizona and nationwide. You can watch our documentary Hooked RX, From Prescription to Addiction, and find resources for getting help online at hookedrx.org.